And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fire on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that into your phones. It is free. You can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety, and you can always go back and watch and listen if you miss it as well. If you are watching, you'll notice a little bit of a different look this afternoon. I, JB, am to the right of the screen. To the left, that is Darren Goldwater. We are here until 2 p.m., and we'll bring you all the news and notes from this weekend in college hoops, college baseball, college football. Certainly there's some interesting stuff going on in college football we're going to get to here in just a little bit, but plenty in the sport of baseball and basketball as it pertains to our folks here in the Palmetto State. We've got Mike Uva, we've got Wes Mitchell, and we are loaded down once again across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our text line, and our phone number and our text line is open. And you can check us out there. You can comment in any way, shape, or form from anywhere that you are watching or listening to our program. We'll get those comments up and make them a part of our program as well. But with all that being said, I am in the home studio. Darren is in his home studio, but nonetheless, we're still here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. What's up, man?
Yeah, no, it's fun to test some stuff, right? This is kind of the way of the world, the way things are going these last couple of months. So it's good to test some things out as we grow the program a little bit and see what may or may not be possible. So this should be a fun week of tweaking some stuff, but the show remains the same. So let's see where we go with this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing too. Darren and I have a lot of stuff that we need to nail down. When the fall rolls around, he will be calling college football games again, and you could be on the road, D. That'll leave me hanging.
Let's hope.
We got to figure out how to do this.
Into those rotations. We'll get there though.
Yeah, no doubt. StokesVW.com, of course. You want to, if you're getting some tax money back right now and you're in the market for a new car, that's where you want to go. StokesVW.com. Of course, they drive our program daily right here, JB and Goldwater. I mentioned Mike Uva. He's at 12:30. Gamecocks win the SEC tournament this weekend in women's hoops. He's going to talk about that. We'll get into some baseball with him as well. Keep in mind, Clemson is in the middle of spring practice. South Carolina will start spring practice next Saturday. So we're going to start to get into some football there. We got Wes Mitchell to bring us some of that conversation at 1 o'clock this afternoon with Gamecock Central. So, yeah, it is a loaded down program. But, Darren, we'll start with the champions this weekend. The ladies, South Carolina gets it done for the 6th time in 7 years in the SEC women's tournament. And they got over a hot Georgia team. Georgia all of a sudden is good. And I think people have heard about the history that was made in this matchup between the Dogs and the Gamecocks. For the first time ever, 2 African-American head coaches in a women's championship game in a conference tournament, which was, of course, really neat to see. But Dawn Staley did what she continues to do, and that is win at South Carolina. Again, 67-62, the final score there, Darren, and that puts them at 22-4, 14-2 in the SEC. That was in the regular season, but if you add in these 3 games, 17-2. Now the question becomes, are they a number 1 seed or not? And NC State is making a case. I think everybody's in agreement right now. Carolina and NC State are 4 and 5 somehow. There's some that think South Carolina will be the 4th seed. Matter of fact, Charlie Krim's brand new bracketology rankings have them at 4 and NC State at 5. They also have A&M in there, and A&M, of course, won the regular season title in the Southeastern Conference before being upset by Georgia this weekend. But let's remember something. NC State beat the Gamecocks earlier this year. So they're 20-2. They have 2 victories this year against number 1 ranked teams. Carolina was one of those. They're the ACC tourney champs. NC State had a magical run this weekend, an amazing shot to win it in the title game. But they're only 3-0 against the top 25. The ACC, not as deep as the SEC in women's basketball this year. South Carolina, 9-4 versus the top 25. So there's some argument to be made there. I don't know who's going to get it. I don't necessarily have a pick, one or the other. I think they're both deserving, but that'll be interesting to see who gets that 4th top spot.
Yeah, I was curious because Charlie Krim actually had South Carolina still clinging to a number 1 even after that loss to Texas A&M to end the regular season. So my guess is that the Gamecocks do have that last number 1 seed, and NC State is the number 1-2 seed. But like you said, I mean, NC State beat them. NC State's got that buzzer beater in the conference championship that could at least, I don't know, sway someone just because of the feels of it. And again, because of the head-to-head, how much of a difference does it actually make? That'll depend on how the whole field shakes out. Everyone's going to be in the same place, right? So it's not a matter of regional seeding like it has been in the past. It's this S curve. So It is possible that the number 1 second seed is a better seeding bracket-wise for South Carolina than the number 4 top seed. It'll all depend on how the bracket shakes out.
That's right. That's right. I'm with you. I think what Charlie Krim is saying, I think Carolina will get it. I do think they'll get it because, look, I know that they lost NC State, but it was early in the year, and if that's what you're looking at to decide 4 and 5 here head to head, it's, what have you done for me lately? Well, Carolina all of a sudden has won this tournament. Of course, so did NC State. But when you look at that, when you look at the bulk of the work there, I have a feeling even with 2 more losses and a loss against NC State, they're still going to give the nod to South Carolina because of those 9 top 25 wins.
Yeah, you'd think so. And not only the 9 top 25 wins, and even though you don't want to say that you look back on previous years because supposedly that's not anything that's considered, but let's be honest, it is. It factors into the back of your mind. It has to. This is a dominant program. NC State is on the rise. Westmore has got them steadily moving in the right direction and has for the last few years, and now they're as good as they have been. But the Gamecocks are the established program. So does that give them the edge? It's possible that it does.
It does. Yeah. We'll see how it all shapes out, shakes out. But Carolina, 22-4. It's just amazing to see what she's done with this program. I mean, this program used to be honestly trash.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible. And I know that folks were upset when they got beat by A&M in the regular season. But here they are again, looking at a 1 line and a possible run to another Final Four. Last year, I think everybody thought they'd win the national championship. Probably gonna have a chance to do it again this year if they keep winning. So we'll see. That Georgia team's good. It was neat to see them there.
Yep.
All right. Elsewhere in the state this weekend, it wasn't as good for the Gamecock men. Pounded by Kentucky, only down 8 at the half, and then they had to play second half, and that didn't work out for them. Finished the regular season at 6-14, 4-12 in the SEC. They are the 11 seed in the tournament. If you haven't seen the bracket, here's how it kind of shakes out. On Wednesday, you'll have the 12-13 matchup. That's A&M and Vanderbilt. So Carolina avoided that. They'll play the late one on Thursday against 6-seeded Ole Miss at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. And if they're able to get by the Rebels, who've been playing really good basketball at the end of the season, 3rd-seeded LSU will be awaiting South Carolina for another late tip on Friday night in the quarterfinals. The top 4 seeds, Bama, Arkansas, LSU, and Tennessee at 4. That game on Thursday for South Carolina available on the SEC network. and so would Fridays if they're able to get through Ole Miss. But you're going to have trouble finding anybody at this point in time right now who believes that South Carolina is going to somehow beat Ole Miss. But we'll see. It's the SEC tournament. You know, what you have to wonder. Again, I'm always a glass half full guy, but here's what you have to wonder: is this team? We know they're talented. I forget the people that say they're not talented. That's not true. They are talented. But are they a team who can turn it on in a different environment? Everything that's happened this year, we know that they beat Florida. That was the one win you could actually circle and say, all right, you know, they have it in them to beat somebody that's worth a damn. Is this team capable of turning it on in a tournament setting, Darren, where you're going to have to run out there and win, you know, 4 games in 4 days? I don't have that answer. I'm leaning towards no, but we won't know till we see them.
Yeah, you know, and that's the big question. And honestly, I had a lot of conversations with some fellow Gamecock fans, fellow being on your side of things. I'm quite neutral when it comes to all of that. But there was this weekend, I think the Kentucky game put a lot of folks back into okay, I understand hammering Georgia was a complete aberration because now we've kind of been hammered back down to earth. And is there any real hope in the SEC tournament? And I don't get the sense that there is. And then the common thread of these conversations became really what's wrong, right? Because we know that the message isn't getting through. We know that whatever the pregame conversations are, they're not translating onto the floor. We know that whoever is trying to grab hold in the locker room as a leader from a player standpoint, we know that hasn't worked. Maybe 1, 2, however many that there are, it hasn't worked to grab the team and bring them all together. So why is there any realistic hope that they can put that together in the SEC tournament? And then what happens down the road? So it kind of circles back to that same conversation that we've been having through the whole back half of the regular season. Yeah,
I mean, it's all reports say that I like Tyler's optimism there. I believe that we will win, but all reports say it's Keyshawn Bryant who's really tried to step up and take a leadership role in this program. And I don't know if the message isn't getting through or what, but you know, there is renewed. I mean, this morning Paul Feinbaum was talking about the future of Frank Martin.
Oh, is that right?
And, yeah, and he said, look, you know, here's the thing. If he said what we all say, anybody who's ever encountered Frank Martin is it's hard to find a more likable guy than Frank Martin. And he's a guy who, you know, went to 4 NCAA tournaments in 5 years at Kansas State. They went to an Elite 8. They made 1 or 2 other Sweet 16 runs up there. Generally, when Frank Martin gets a team in the tournament, they win games. Mm-hmm. They're not a one and done. They win. I mean, obviously, at Carolina, they went to the Final Four. So, but like he was saying, he was like, you know, at the end of the day, they haven't done anything outside of that year. I mean, there was the year where they won 25 games, the year prior. We've all had these conversations. Like, we don't really need to have the conversations again. But my point is that now that there are influential national voices now that the end of the year has arrived, talking about the future of Frank Martin at South Carolina. And that was my point all along with this. Like, we can have the spin your wheels type conversations every day, every week, all we want to have them. But at the end of the day, you got to wait until the end of the year and figure out exactly where you are, where you're going, and things of that nature. If the answers aren't there and you know, it's an affordable change, then maybe there's one that's necessary. And think about it like this too, right?
Yep.
So when you have a program that's hit the skids like this, is it the coaches or is it the players? If it's the players, is it a fixable problem? Is it 1 or 2 players? Is it 1, 2, 3 players? Is it something where you can replace a couple of guys? You know, 1 or 2 cancers in the locker room could cause a problem. We all know that. Is that something that they can, you know, fix that problem? You tweak it, you move on, you kind of get back on track. Has the team lost their faith in the coaching staff? If that's the case, then it's the coaches, and that's where the change probably needs to be made. So, you know, those are the things that Frank Martin and Ray Tanner are going to sit down and figure out, and what's hopefully a very honest conversation. I'm sure it will be between those two gentlemen. If it's a fixable roster problem, in my opinion, you fix the problem and move on. If it's a widespread cancerous type problem and it's not fixable without replacing the coaching staff, then you might not have a choice, regardless of a $6.5 million buyout, which I know fans aren't going to be happy about. There's guys, you know how this is. There's people talking out of both sides of their mouth right now. Fire, 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 fire. And then you fire a guy and you go, oh my God, he has a $6.5 million buyout. We've paid $20 million in buyouts. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. And let me just kind of twist it a little. At the very beginning of the game against Kentucky, there was a shot of Frank Martin and Calipari kind of embracing. They were smiling. They looked like they were laughing. Two guys who are going through two of the hardest individual seasons that both have had to endure. And there was a glimpse of, at least in my eyes, like older, healthier, or younger Frank Martin, right? Like prior to this year, Frank Martin. And it was a good thing to see. To me, it told me, okay, maybe however sick he has been, he's feeling just a little bit better. You don't see him. Yeah, there's the mask, but you haven't seen him smile that much. There hasn't been that much joy in this year. And I'm sure the same can be said on the Kentucky side of things. It was good to see. So can that translate over? But honestly, the feeling in my eyes is no, it's not going to translate over. And then it gets to, okay, he won't have an extension. So if he's back next year, it's on a lame duck contract basically. And he's forced to perform under, again, hard circumstances. And then once the national guys start getting swooped up in this and he becomes part of the conversation, then that starts to push the local narrative a little bit as well, and vice versa. So, for Frank Martin, it's going to depend on, I think, what Frank Martin wants. Does he want to try and stay with South Carolina and rebuild this thing, or does he want to see if there's something else out there? That's my gut. My gut tells me it's going to be Frank Martin to say, hey, do I want to roll the dice and see if I can pull this thing off next year, or let's part ways.
843-321-8893 to be part of the conversation. That is our text line. Are Frank Martin's and John Calipari's situations similar?
No, because the only way that they're similar is because they're two highly respected coaches, very different personalities, but highly respected, who are going through some of the toughest seasons of their careers, if not the toughest season of their careers. That's the only parallel, because Calipari is a Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. He is a lifetime contract guy at Kentucky. I mean, his buyout, what did JC said, it was like 50 or 60 million or something absurd like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the only comparison is the struggle they're going through this year. And I'm sure they can have conversations about that. But in my eyes, that's the only comparison.
Yeah, you're not buying out a $50 million contract.
No.
I mean, not in the not with what's going on right now. Absolutely not.
Honestly, who you getting that's better than Calipari?
Nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous. And there's Kentucky fans that aren't going to settle until he's fired. They literally fire John Cal. He's lost it. Fire him.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be kidding me.
Yeah, because fans are totally normal.
Clemson has made it normal this year to win on the hardwood. Unlike South Carolina, they beat Pittsburgh 77-62 to end the regular season. Darren, 16-6, 10-6 in the ACC, all set up for, at this point in time, probably a 7 or 8 seed, maybe a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. We'll see what happens in the ACC tournament, which is set to take place this week. That schedule is out as well. Here's what it looks like. The Tigers will not play until Wednesday at 2:30 on the ACC network. They will await the winner of the 12-13 matchup. 12th seeded Pittsburgh, 13th seeded Miami, who will tip off at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon up in Greensboro, North Carolina. You don't see this often, but in the first round on Tuesday, 10th seeded Duke will play 15th seeded Boston College. You just don't see it much. Matter of fact, you don't see the top 4 seeds in the ACC look like this ever. Virginia as the top seed, Florida State the 2, Virginia Tech the 3, and Georgia Tech in there at 4. How about Josh Pastner? I mean, he's done an amazing job. He's got the ACC's Player of the Year now. But the traditional powers are outside of the double bye line. North Carolina is at 6, Louisville's at 7. You've got NC State at 9, and I mentioned Duke back there at 10. So a different look to the ACC tournament this year. But I like what happened with Clemson here, where Georgia Tech falls at 4. Because Clemson's going to have a huge, wonderful opportunity to beat both Pittsburgh and Miami, whoever wins that. And then if you advance and you get Georgia Tech, I think they split that season series. That's a great opportunity. The only problem is if you want to win the whole deal, I'm sure you're going to have to go through Virginia at some point in time. And we all know how that one worked out earlier this year, 85-50, a blowout up at Little John Coliseum. But nonetheless, Clemson's got a great chance here to win a couple of games, Darren. You win 2. Let's say they go 2-1 in this tournament. I'm being hypothetical with this, but let's say you're 18-7 overall, 12-7 in the ACC. I don't know. Have you snuck into a 6, maybe a 5? I mean, they're up there.
Yeah, that's the thing. The way this bracket sets up, the fact that you feel good about Pittsburgh and Miami, whoever you get right there, and then if you can beat Georgia Tech, that's a good win for you right there. So can you improve that seed? I forget who it was that brought it up. Who it was? Raphael. That's who it was. Because then if you slide into that 5 line, then you're in that 12-5, that 12-5 matchup. Do you really want to be right there? Because that's the one that typically has the upsets. But there is an opportunity for Clemson to improve its seed line. There's no doubt about that by winning 2 games. The good thing for the Tigers, they're in, and their calling card is defense.
Yep.
So can you win a couple of games? Can you get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament? I think the answer is possibly. I think Clemson's in a better spot right now than they have been in quite a long time.
Keep in mind, if they do get to Georgia Tech in that second round, well, I guess it'd be the quarterfinal round, but it'd be their second round, the second game they'd play. Georgia Tech has won 6 in a row to bump their record to 15-8 overall and 11-6. Keep that in mind. They were 5-6 in the league and 9-8 overall. They are 15-8 and 11-6 in the ACC. It's been a remarkable run for Josh Pastner and the Yellow Jackets. By all accounts, they're in the NCAA tournament at this point in time as well. It seems like a great hire for them to this point. All right, let's get through the rest of the state stuff this weekend in hoops, baseball, football, and then we got Mike Uva coming up at 12:30 from Columbia, South Carolina. Charleston's season ended against Drexel yesterday in the Colonial Athletic Association's quarterfinal round, 80-75. So the Cougs on the hardwood, they are done now here in the spring. Regardless, Zep Jasper had a hell of a game. He did everything he could, but they couldn't get any more. 80-75, 27 points for Zep Jasper, and their season ends and now is officially over. The Citadel season has also ended, 80-72. This weekend, a loss against UNC Greensboro. However, Darren, and you'll remember this quite well, they have secured their first winning season since you were the voice of the Bulldogs back in 2008 and 2009. A tremendous accomplishment for Duggar Balcom.
Yeah, I mean, it is not easy to win basketball games at the Citadel. It is widely regarded as one of the toughest jobs in the country. You can throw maybe 2 or 3 other jobs into that. VMI is one of them. But the fact that Duggar, who, keep in mind, coming into this year, things weren't looking great. They had a couple of really tough years, but he got them turned around, right? They got off to that unbelievable start. I started referencing this 08-09 year, saying, hey, can they put this thing together? Can they win 11 in a row like that year? Can they win 20 games? And Hartzell, the beat writer, kind of put me on pause a little bit, said, let's just hold on. But the fact that they got to the tournament and played well, almost beat UNCG. At least they pushed the top seed UNCG in their second round game as well. It's a heck of a year for the Bulldogs to finish above 500 for the first time in 11 years, 12 years. It's a remarkable accomplishment. And it sounds kind of silly to say, you finished over 500. Great. But I'm telling you, at the Citadel, basketball, just go through the record books. It's not easy to do. It's almost impossible to do.
No, it's a huge ordeal. Elsewhere in the SoCon, I do it. You mentioned UNCG. I've got a great nugget from Jeff Hartzell to pass along here. Of course, Mercer beat Wofford. VMI beat Furman this weekend, so their seasons are over. Remember the even though the NIT will play, it is shrunk to 16 teams, and there are no AQs. They're only at-large bids here. So Neither one of them, I don't think, is going to be selected. Coastal eliminated by App State in overtime in the Sun Belt semifinals. That was a great game. They just couldn't get it done. We'll see what happens with their postseason, but that looks over as well. 4 teams are qualified for the dance at this point in time. Liberty out of the A-Sun. Winthrop, of course, rolled right through the Big South Championship. They're in. South Carolina's lone representative at this point in time, although they could be joined and will be joined soon by Clemson. Loyola Chicago from the Missouri Valley Conference. They're in. Morehead State out of the Ohio Valley. They are also in. Today's conference championship games, we're going to get 2 more tickets punched. The Sun Belt Final will play App State and Georgia State at 7 o'clock on ESPN2 tonight from Pensacola, Florida. And then the SoCon Final, which is Mercer and UNC Greensboro at 7 on ESPN in Asheville. Now, how about this stat from the Post and Courier's Jeff Hartzell, who's him and Scott Eisberg, I don't think sleep because they roll out stuff I've never seen before, and I've never seen this. The 7th-seeded Bears, who are 18-10 overall, will attempt tonight to become the first SoCon team since 1939 to win the title by taking 4 games in 4 days. Okay? All right, you ready for it? This is Mercer attempting to beat number 1 seeded Greensboro tonight by taking 4 games in 4 days for the automatic berth. 1939 is the last time this happened. That's almost about 80 years ago or so.
Right, yeah.
That team was Clemson when they were in the SoCon in 1939. What a stat.
Yeah, it's one of those things that every time the SoCon tournament gets ramped up, and keep in mind, right, you throw the Clemson thing out there, the SEC and the ACC were born out of the Southern Conference.
That's right.
The SoCon tournament is the oldest ongoing basketball tournament year in and year out. I want to say this year they celebrated their 100th year. I believe I'm correct in that. It's 100. So it's one of those numbers that gets thrown out every year now that we're in Asheville, getting to, hey, can someone win 4 games in 4 days? The fact that it's Mercer, what's interesting is they knocked off Wofford, had to do it in overtime. Wofford has this crazy charge to get back into the game. Mercer knocks them off in overtime. It's hard to win on back-to-back days. They knock off VMI, and now do they have enough in the tank to capture this thing and win 4 games in 4 days? I don't know the answer to that, but let's see, right? I expect Mercer to have legs in the first half.
Yeah, do they in the second?
It's the second half, right? The energy, the adrenaline, that'll be good for at least, 10, 15, maybe the first half. The second half, can they sustain it? That'll be key for Mercer.
I like Greensboro in that bowl game tonight. Yes. just my pick. Real quick, in football and baseball this weekend, heartbreaker for the Citadel. Oh, my gosh. And you know what? Tying all this into Gene Sapikoff's column in the Post and Courier, and we've talked to – there was some wonderful FCS football on TV this weekend on ESPN Plus. Should have been on national TV, but it wasn't. Citadel dropped a heartbreaker against Chattanooga Saturday. They tie it up with 41 seconds left. By the way, that touchdown, we were watching it. Yeah. I have no idea what that official saw or thought he saw when he had him down at about the 1 yard line. He was actually a yard deep in the end zone when he caught the football. The kid for the Citadel. They went back and, of course, reviewed it, gave him the touchdown. Dogs tie it, go into OT. They score. Chattanooga scores, goes for 2, and they got it. And, of course, the Citadel didn't give up a point in the second half after being down 10. But they are now 0-6 when you combine that with their fall record. So a tough weekend for them. How about Furman? They beat Samford in overtime Saturday. Another great FCS football game this weekend. Furman now 2-1. VMI throttled Western Carolina. They're 2-0. Alabama A&M beat South Carolina State in the first game of the spring for the Bulldogs. And Deion Sanders and Jackson State, they are 2-0, guys, after beating Grambling 33-28 this weekend. In baseball, Charleston Southern took 2 of 3 from Longwood. First career win for Mark McMillan as the new head coach of the Bucks. They are 2-4 overall now. The College of Charleston, they're struggling. They did get one this weekend against Bama, but the other 2 weren't close. 8-0, 21-3 losses against the Tide. Just 3-7 for Chad Holbrook's Cougars to open the spring. The Citadel this weekend, they dropped 2 against North Carolina A&T. They are 4-6 overall. They've got South Carolina coming up at home on Wednesday, and then Davidson in a 3-game series to open the SoCon play on starting Friday. Clemson loses 2 of 3 this weekend to Notre Dame. Monty Lee's Tigers just 5-4. They've got USC Upstate on Tuesday, and then they go to Chapel Hill, North Carolina for a 3-game set starting Friday. Coastal Carolina, they are 7-3. They actually play UConn today. This weekend, they went 2-1 with a couple of wins there. They got Florida International later on this week in a 4-game series as well, but 7-3 overall. And, of course, the Gamecocks, 10-0 and newly ranked 12th in the country by D1 Baseball, 10th in the country by Baseball America. Collegiate Baseball has Carolina up at number 5, and they're on the road this week down here in Charleston to take on the Dogs Wednesday, and then they'll head west to the big series in Austin, Texas against the Longhorns, who are ranked 19th by D1 Baseball, 20th at this point in time by Baseball America. So that'll be a top 20 matchup on the road against the Big 12's Texas Longhorns. And we got more on that today, tomorrow, and the rest of the week. Time for a timeout. When we return, speaking of the Gamecocks, women's basketball, men's basketball, and this undefeated baseball team, Mike Uva, he is set to join us live from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm in the home studio today. Darren's in the home studio. If you're tuning in and it looks different, if you're watching, that's why. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Peace and love at Stokes V-Dub.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. Whatever you got planned this week, cancel it. 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours at whatever price it takes. I repeat, 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours. To the first 72 car buyers interested in saving up to $6,000 on a new Volkswagen for 3 days only. Every new Volkswagen and pre-owned vehicle at our bottom line price. Direct to the public, regardless of profit. Qualified purchases with interest-free financing for 60 months, and all trade-ins will be accepted. Interested parties should arrive early for best selection. You will not find a lower price anywhere in the country. 72-hour Volkswagen clearance, savings up to $6,000, 3 days only at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes V-Dub.
$16.66 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag includes $499.50 administration fee subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Guys, spring is finally in the air. You know what that means? Basketball in its home stretch. March Madness promotion at Dog and Ducks, 3 locations in Mount Pleasant, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. From now until the end of the tournament, $5 Sweetwater pints. That's right. Every Sweetwater, just $5 at Dog and Duck, Park West, Bell Hall, and their Clements Ferry location. Plus, baseball spring training, college baseball, spring football, it's all available at Dog and Duck's 3 locations in Mount Pleasant.
You don't think? You don't think? But I don't think you should be butting in when I'm talking to my team. You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box.
You know who you're talking to.
I'm talking to the juice box guy.
You're crazy.
Now, JB and Goldwater, live in the Low Country.
All right, welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. You can find us on the JB and Goldwater app and, of course, at jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. Send us a message. If you've got something to say it on whatever platform you're watching or listening to our program. We'll make sure that we plug you right into our conversation. Again, if you're watching today and it looks a little different, that's because Darren and I aren't next to each other this week. We're trying out some new home studio stuff, and I'm back at home. Darren's at home, and so is Mike Uva. That's where he joins us from an upgraded studio in Columbia, South Carolina with Watch Fox News. What's up, brother?
How we doing, guys?
Hey man, where's your now? How Darren and I have mics and you don't. So what's the special voice that you got going here?
I don't know. Does it sound bad? Good.
No, it sounds good. What you're going to do is you're going to make us step up our studio game, our home.
No, I have to get a microphone.
Overall studio.
That's the one thing I don't have, but I'm very happy that I could put a lot of this stuff up that's been in storage for the last couple months. So,
I
like it. Yeah, solid.
Yeah, so what do you? I see your jerseys back there. What else is behind you?
Let's see. We got. I mean, a lot of the photos are either people that have helped me along the way, whether it's media members, athletes.
Okay.
Malcolm Butler and I, we met actually down at the Citadel at the Medal of Honor Bowl back in 2014.
Yep.
So he sent me all those, and the beauty about that, all those are signed. I've been able to stay in contact. The great George Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
Jim McMahon drinking a Coors Light. Chestnut. So, yeah, it's just a bunch of – my favorite one is the Chris Berman one in the middle when I worked at ESPN Boston. So
nice. Yeah, I've got my George Rogers right here.
You pointed right at the bourbon.
Yeah, well, that's some cool bourbon though. That's my Woodford Reserved engraved USC men and women 2017 Final Four.
My favorite bourbon. Love it.
I will never open that bottle of bourbon there. That was made special for me when the men and women made that run in 2017. So I'll never open it. That's all. It's just going to stay cracked until one of my kids drops it somewhere. I'm sure at some point in time. All right, Mike, let's get to it here. Let's start with the ladies, man. Pretty good weekend for South Carolina athletics. The men unfortunately didn't get it done, which is normal right now. But the baseball team did. We'll get to that in a moment. But the women, 6 and 7 years now for Dawn, and they're teetering on that 1 seed line. Selection Monday, I guess, is a week away. So we'll see how it all kind of plays itself out. But just a tremendous accomplishment. I know that they've had a couple of tough losses down the stretch here, but they got it done in the tournament. I don't know. So let me ask you this question. I was hoping that A&M would beat Georgia because for two reasons. One, I thought, okay, a win over A&M in the championship game, they're not dropping below a 2 seed at all. So they could win themselves onto a 1 seed line by beating A&M. They could also get revenge. And so those two reasons, I was like, man, I hope that A&M, we should see them in the final. Georgia's played well. They upset them. But I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think it helped or hurt South Carolina that A&M did not make it to the finals in the women's basketball tournament?
Oh, in terms of a seeding, standpoint, yeah, probably hurt them a little bit because when you're going to look at the strength of the schedule, it just would have been a stronger schedule if you had played Texas A&M again for a second time and you were able to actually beat them. So from that regard, absolutely. But with that being said, we could go down doing the popsicle headache game saying, what if they played this team and if they had lost to A&M, they're not going to be in the seed that they're in right now. So to be able to win the SEC tournament, I've always gone back and forth on it, right? Just as the competitor in you, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who got to talk to coaches and players who will say publicly, they'll be like, oh yeah, we'd love to play them again. At the end of the day, who really gives two you-know-whats? Because, if you win a conference championship 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, does anyone really remember who you beat in that championship game 9 times out of 10? I mean, yeah, we could look back to the one last year against Mississippi State and Vic Schaefer. I get that. But most of the times, you don't remember who's the losing team. So I think in bottom line is this. South Carolina, they needed to be able to find any type of positive momentum heading into the NCAA tournament. You were able to do that this weekend. Was it their best basketball they've played all year? Absolutely not. Have they struggled down the stretch here a little bit? Yeah. But at the same time, too, you're able to at least feel good about yourself, and you're able to say, hey, you know what? We have another SEC crown. We're heading into the NCAA tournament, and whether they put us as a 2 seed or a 3 seed, doesn't matter. We have confidence in ourselves now. Let's just go out there and prove to people that we just did not play some of our best basketball these last couple of weeks.
It's really interesting because last year's team, we can't prove it at all, but that team seemed destined to win the national championship. I know there was argument over whether it would be South Carolina or Oregon. Oregon was really good. I think they had the best player in the country at that point in time. This team is, I said to Darren after they got beat by UConn, I said, if they see UConn again, I think they'll beat them. I think that this was a better team than UConn, but the best player in the country that day who was on UConn's team played like it and beat them at home. But when you look at this team and you see the talent and you know what's ahead, you have to wonder, like, this is their time. Dawn knows this tournament inside and out, and you have to wonder what the next week is going to be like, week and a half, as they prepare for the tournament with all that talent. Hey, look, this is us. This is what we're used to now. And what are they going to look like when they open the doors to the women's tournament starting next week, as opposed to what they've looked like in the last couple of weeks of the regular season?
Yeah, we've become accustomed to it, and you can look at it and compare it to other colleges. You look at maybe Clemson football the last couple of years. You look at Alabama football. If they just haven't been playing, and obviously football is so tough in comparison with college football, because it's just like if you make a mistake in terms of losing, you could be done. But trying to play your best football towards the end of the season, you look at those two teams, you know that if they're there, anything can happen. I think the same thing can be said about women's basketball for USC. It's that you expect them to get to this point, and regardless of the hiccups that came along the journey, that now that they are here, anything can happen. I mean, I look at it, being a Boston guy, the Patriots, once they get to the playoffs, it's like, all right, well, you're going to bet against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the postseason, especially if they're at home and it's cold out. So, I mean, this is their environment right now. And I think being able to have that experience in terms of, last year, and I'm looking at the numbers as soon as you were saying that. I mean, last year they were 32-1, best in Division I, 5-0 versus AP top 10 teams, 13-1 versus AP top 25 teams, 9 week as the AP number 1 team, which was the most in Division I, and you keep going down the list. The difference this year compared to last year, and it's two major parts, and we said this all off season, and I think some people kind of, took it for granted. Ty Harris, Kiki Herbert-Harrigan, you don't have that leadership out there, and that's no disrespect to a girl like, Lily Grissett, but the problem is those two, what they were able to bring, especially Ty Harris playing that point guard position, and then just seeing what Kiki was able to do in that back half of the season, and just tremendous growth from freshman year. I think you're seeing just that loss, and that's just something that, Destiny Henderson and Zaya Cook, they're going to be two outstanding players. And, obviously Destiny's, getting up there in terms of she's going to be, which is wild just to think she's going to be a senior next year already. But the point being is, it's just that losing players like that, it's not as easy to be able to, it's not a puzzle like that all the time in terms of just throwing someone in. I think people just assume and expect it to be that way. It's not always that smooth. Even though these girls have been playing tremendously, I should call them women, have been playing tremendously, you lost a lot last year. So I think more than anything, and I've said this all season long, it starts with your guard play. Go back and look at the games that South Carolina has lost. Go look at Zaya Cook, and I'm not trying to pick on these two, but go look at Zaya Cook and look at Destiny Henderson's turnovers those games. I guarantee you it's double digits in terms of what they've combined in those losses. So if they can be able to protect the basketball, I don't think anyone could beat this team. I think they just have that type of talent. The only way they're going to beat themselves, and I know it's cliche to say, is if they shoot themselves in the foot.
Mike Uva, watch Fox in Columbia. He's got a biscuit. He's got a new show. He's going to tell you about that here in just a little bit. All right, let me ask you this. So one of Darren and I's great friends in this industry is Debbie Antonelli. I don't know if I respect anybody in the sport of basketball in this country more than Debbie Antonelli. She is such a champion for everything that's right. And for the longest time, she has been standing on top of a box, beating that drum, saying, we got to get the women's Sweet 16 to Vegas. The Sweet 16, all of it. Las Vegas, cut the lights on, let it be the center of the basketball universe for the ladies. And I think Darren and I have spoken about this 100 times, Darren. We agree with her.
Yeah.
This year, there's almost kind of a trial run. It's in the San Antonio era, and the whole tournament is there, obviously, because of COVID. But what do you think that we could learn about this year's women's tournament being in one location like that, where you're going to have all the news, all the stories, all the ladies, all of it's going to be right there? What could we learn about this to try and project, propel that into the future and give these women more of a platform to stand on as it pertains to this tournament?
I think more than anything, it makes things easier for journalists to be able to go there, and it gives them no reason why they shouldn't be there. You try to compare things that happen year in and year out at the same location. And I understand, yes, over a period of time, things could get stale. But at the same time, too, it's something that people look forward to. And I look at, there's a great conversation I heard on Sports Talk Radio back in Boston just the other day. You look at the NFL Pro Bowl, okay? Now, obviously, the game itself is just an absolute joke, but you're seeing less and less players go to it now. Why is that? Well, think about it before. You go down to Hawaii, you get a free trip with you and your family. You're able to go to Hawaii. Now that it's like in Florida or whatever, it's just not the same. You know what I mean? So the game itself, and I understand, it might not be as easy for fans to go. But the point being is when you're able to put it in a location that's just a little bit different, I really think it could stand out and it can do a lot because, it gives media members an opportunity. I mean, look at the Bahamas Bowl. Mm-hmm. Go down to Bahamas. There's certain places in the world that people are going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I could see myself going there. We're not going to, North Dakota here. I mean, we're talking about Las Vegas, and not only a place that obviously is able to bring in a lot of money and a place that doesn't have a pro sports team in terms of, we've seen what the Las Vegas Raiders have done, but they don't have a pro basketball team there from an NBA standpoint. Yes, they have women's basketball, and look what Asia Wilson has been able to do there. So my point being is Vegas isn't necessarily a pro sports market yet. And I feel like they're growing into that. And I feel like in the next 5 years, people will just be like, hey, yeah, that's a pro market right now. But to me, when you say Las Vegas, I don't look at it the same way as a Chicago, a New York, or a Boston, or an LA, or even like a Miami, They're growing into that pro sports market. But being able to take advantage of it right now, on top of the fact of, like I just said, and I understand, we're all going to be biased towards it because you played as a Gamecock, you have one of the faces of your league in there, and she is absolutely changing the landscape of not just Las Vegas basketball, but you're changing the landscape of the WNBA. Why not put it in a place like that? I think it would be tremendous.
Well, Darren, didn't we talk to Corey about this? Like, isn't Major League Baseball really considering Vegas for expansion?
Oh yeah, the Vegas and Nashville as well. They're Nashville's got the issue of being too close to Atlanta as the Braves market, but Vegas is an option. I mean, they have a successful AAA franchise that's out in Vegas and has been for a while.
Yeah, they'd have
there's something I can't remember. The 47s, the 50,
the Isotopes.
Oh, I'm talking about the AAA baseball team that they had. It was like it had something with like UFO. It was like basically like a number, like the number that you would say for like a UFO. You know what I'm talking?
Yeah. Area 51.
Yeah, right? They're called the Las Vegas 51s.
Is that what it was? Is that what it is? That's what it is now.
I know. I think.
What about the Isotopes? Wasn't that something?
See, I'd be lying to you if I said I'm a huge minor league baseball fan.
Albuquerque. All right.
Albuquerque. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Albuquerque.
Las Vegas 51s. I think they're still out there. I think they're a Mets affiliate, and of course, with minor league baseball changing, I don't think they were impacted. And I think they still have a AAA team out there right now.
They do.
Yeah, but the point of all this to make Mike's point, I guess to kind of round it out here, is that Vegas doesn't have an identity as a college town or a pro town. They're turning into just a sports town is what they're turning into. And they've got football there. They got the Golden Knights there. They've got the WNBA, looking at the NBA, looking at Major League Baseball. If you put something like this there, the women's Sweet 16. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to accomplish. And let's remember something important. I want to move on, though, but let's remember something important about the women's tournament in San Antonio right now. Texas is open for business, guys. There's going to be people in the stands watching the games. So the atmosphere you're going to see in this tournament, as opposed to a lot of what you're going to see in the men's tournament, it's going to be different. There's going to be people there watching basketball.
And I think the other thing, too, is you're able to physically see it up close. And I always tell people when it comes to hockey, right? People that might not be big hockey fans, when you're able to actually see the game up close, you'll fall in love with the game. Like I'm telling you will fall in love with the game. I mean, the rules might be a little tough for you in terms if you're not a big hockey guy, but I think with basketball is basketball. Either you know the rules or you don't know the rules. But I think with the WNBA, I think there's some people that look at it and maybe they're skeptical. Maybe they just look at it and be like, well, is it great basketball? But when you go, especially with the teams like South Carolina, there's nothing better than watching good college women's basketball. And I'm not just saying that. I truly believe it's just playing underneath the rim. I mean, you get the fundamentals and everything. It's a good product. I mean, I was skeptical when I was maybe before and I was in college. It's like, I'm not going to watch WNBA or women's college basketball. And then you watch good product. It's hard to turn away from. So I think people that might be teeter-tottering and they have a chance to be able to go out there and see it, they're like, you know what? The price of the tickets might not be as bad in comparison to a men's tournament. Let's go take, my kid out, or let's just go out and, have a couple cold ones and be able to watch this and check it out. And they might fall in love with it. And you might be able just to continue to grow your brand in a part of the country that might not be as big right now with women's basketball.
Yeah, it's about the superstars too. And obviously Asia Wilson, I mean, she gets tweets and conversation from LeBron James and all these big superstars out there. Nobody's bigger than Dawn in women's college basketball. All right, Mike, let's get to baseball here. Speaking of good product, Carolina's got one at least early on. They're 10-0, and this weekend they gave up one run in 27 innings against Mercer. Mike Morgan hit the nail on the head in the broadcast yesterday. He said over the last 10 years, you could bank on the fact that Mercer is going to win 35 games a year and have a chance to be in the postseason of college baseball. This is a pretty proud program who actually pitched very well this weekend against Carolina, held them to 10 total runs offensively. Keep in mind, South Carolina was averaging almost 10 a game coming into the series, but nonetheless, they're 10-0. They're going to come to Charleston on Wednesday and take on the Citadel, and then they head west to Texas to take on the Longhorns. Carolina up to number 12 in the D1 baseball poll, which is the poll that I'm most pay attention to. But this is we all know how proud the program is, and last year it ended prematurely before they could really kind of get going. They missed the tournament in 2019 with a very poor showing. Mark Kingston had him in the super regionals in his first year in 2018, and this team, they're winning every way you can win to start. Yep. Mike, they're pitching well. They can swing it well. Their defense is back where it needs to be. I think they're playing much better there. This week, all these 4 games on the road, and then you start the SEC, is very important to South Carolina baseball as they try to sustain this momentum.
And you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, that's what I talked about last night on Watch Fox, is that this team is winning in a multitude of ways. They're not just going out there and putting up 10 runs a game. Now, we did see that obviously earlier in the year, outside of that Clemson series. They're going out there, they're finding different ways to win, and it's one of those things that I don't care if it's football, baseball, basketball, being able to have that experience. There's nothing else that can help you out more down the road, especially if you're trying to make a run in postseason, whether it's the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament. So I think being able to get that experience early on in the year is going to be tremendous for South Carolina. The only thing that does scare me heading into this game against the Citadel is that what's on the other side. You know that you're going to be heading down to Austin, Texas. You have another Power 5 conference team that you're going to be playing. You don't want to be able to you don't want to lose that momentum that you've been able to build up these last couple of weeks, these first 3 weeks of the season. So, go down to the Citadel, take care of business. Doesn't matter if you win 1-0, you can win 10-0. Whether Wes Clark hits 2 home runs or he goes, 0 for 4. If you're just able to find ways to win and win this game in particular, because we've talked about this over the last couple of years. One of South Carolina's biggest Achilles heel has been those midweek games, those games that they should be able to win. They have struggled with that. And I think because of that, when they go into conference play, for whatever reason, they start to lose that mojo. They start to lose that swagger. They start to lose that momentum that they were able to gain earlier in recent years. So I think more than anything, go out there, find a way to win this game, start the year off 11-0, go down to Texas. Who knows what can happen down there, but just continue to just find that confidence. It's just great. And the other thing too, I just love how loose this team is. We're seeing that in the post-game press conferences, just having fun, with a word of the day kind of deal and just having fun with the media. It's great. It's great. And I think a lot of people don't realize this. Mark Kingston, he's an amazing guy. I think, he has this persona that sometimes it comes off if you're listening to him in post-game press conferences as this stern guy that kind of got like this Belichick kind of vibe to him. He's the complete opposite of that, but he's doing that because he has to set the tone for his team, especially when he's in front of the media. So just knowing that, knowing what he's been able to create there the last couple of years and the recruits that he's been able to bring in here is just tremendous to see how it's all meshing together. Long season to go, but man, what a great way it's been for these first 3 weeks to start off the year.
Well, Darren, you know this. I don't care how bad if the Citadel's not good, if they're great, it doesn't matter. It's never. I mean, it's not. I don't want to say never. It is rarely a cakewalk at the Joe. This is a neat little rivalry in this state. The Citadel, they knock South Carolina off every couple of years, once or twice during the season. It's hard to come down here and win.
Yeah, not only here, but up in Columbia too, because the Citadel. I used to talk to Fred Jordan about this all the time. The players view this game and this series, however many are going to actually get played, as the biggest game of the year. It's not, right? The coaches understand, even at the Citadel, it's fun for these guys. It's good to compete against a team and players that you, in your heart, believe should be on that same level. But in reality, for the Citadel and South Carolina, the game means the same. It's not as important as the weekend series. But the guys at the Citadel will get up. Same with any midweek game. Same with Winthrop. The guys with the mid-majors, they'll get up to play the Gamecocks because it's the Gamecocks. By the way, as of this morning, I checked with Jeff Hartzell, the beat writer for the Citadel. 222 tickets remained as of about 3 hours ago for Wednesday's game. So there's probably fewer than that now.
Yeah, it'll be sold out with the amount of people that can fit in there. And here's the other thing about baseball. Y'all both know this very well. If you play your way into it early in the season, like South Carolina's doing right now, like they're all of a sudden a top 10, top 15 team, it is much more difficult for you to play your way off of it later in the year. Let me say it this way. It is much more difficult to play your way onto this type of seeding line late in the season in baseball than it is in any other sport. In baseball, there's an extra cushion of forgiveness. Like if you start out banging like they're doing, and then you drop a couple, they're going to lose series. It's going to happen. They're going to drop some games. That's not just going to run them out of the top 25. Like they've played their way into a contender type role, and now it'll be up to them to play their way out of it. It's a much better spot than where they've been, a couple of years ago, having to try to fight their way towards the top 16 seed. Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, and my big thing is this, is how many times you hear this in sports. Could they be peaking too early?
Right.
Shut up. Who cares? Like, really? Would you – I mean –
it's about winning games.
Teams start off like crappy, like, oh, you know what? It's okay. Because you know what would happen? We could be sitting here today. Let's say we make this up, and obviously, pick the games that you want you would say South Carolina would lose. Let's say they're 6-4 right now. What do you think social media would be like right now? I'll tell you exactly what it would be like. It'd be the same exact way it was for Muschamp. It'd be the exact same way that we're seeing it right now from Frank Martin. And I'm not saying that's everyone right now saying, people are panicking because South Carolina is 10-0 in baseball. But I see that. And it's not on social media always. I hear it. I've seen it in other markets too. Enjoy this. Enjoy this. How is it a bad thing that they're 10-0 right now? And I'm not saying everyone is saying that, but there are people out there that will bring it up. They'll look at the glass half empty compared to half full, saying, are they peaking too soon? The good thing is this: if you peak too soon and you hit a little, bump in the middle of the season or in the back end of the season, you know what you have? You have that experience of being successful earlier in the year to be able to say, hey, you know what? We're capable of being successful. The teams that don't start off well and they hit a bump in the middle of the season, they don't have that hat to fall back on. So to be able to have a great start at the beginning of the year, I think, obviously it goes without saying that it's great. But for people that are worried that this team could be peaking too soon, because look, adversity will hit. It's part of life. It's part of just a baseball season. It will happen at some point. They have that experience now. And I don't care if it's against TikTok Tech or whoever. Yes, they beat Clemson. Okay, they've been able to beat some good Power 5 conference schools. They got Texas coming up this upcoming weekend. They're going to have that experience heading into a very good SEC schedule because, I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but I saw that top 10 and just seeing the number of teams that South Carolina still has to play later on in the year. It's
the top 5.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
it's the SEC. You want to be playing with the big boys. That's going to happen. So, and as you see right there too, Texas ranked number 19. So this is what comes with it. This is the territory. You're not playing, in your local softball league, your beer softball league. You're playing in the SEC. You're going up against the best teams. And if you can have a pretty good run, tournament time around the corner, you're going to have, what's that word we talked about? Experience. So. Yeah. I'm liking what's happening right now. This whole peaking thing, you got to give me a break. What a joke.
Well, you have to look. You got to look below the surface and everything. And when you look at this team, you look at 10-0, and you go, okay, where are they deficient? Where are they deficient? Because I haven't seen it. It'd be different if it was like, man, if they don't pitch well, they generally get beat. They just can't score enough runs. Right now, they're riding their arms. That's not true. They're hammering the baseball, and when they're not, they throw it really well. Their bullpen is good. Their starters are good. Up and down the offense, they can play small ball. They can play the long ball. I mean, they're not deficient. You might be able to argue that there was a spot here and there defensively they need to get cleaned up, but they've been a little banged up there. Heinrich with an injury and things like that. Every team has holes, and some of them are bigger than others. This one has them, like most do. But at this point in time, they're small. We'll see if someone exposes them. But at this point in time, they're not big holes. They're holes that you can plug.
Yep.
Yep. And I think the other thing, too, is, and I mentioned this before, these are Kingston's guys now. A couple of years ago, that 2018 run when they went to the tournament, a lot of those guys weren't his. A lot of those guys were Chad Holbrook's guys. So be able to have a team now that is your guys. And I think they're going into the season. It's a long season. I'm sure at some point people will be calling for Mark's head because we're in Columbia, South Carolina. I feel like that's the new trend. You just call for a coach's head every week. But right now, everything's good with Kingston. But I think what we've seen is he's been able to really put a great team together. And going into this season, being able to talk to him, being able to talk to people that are close to the program, that is one of the things they talked about, is just how great of a job he's been able to do from a recruiting standpoint, and not just getting the best players, because I think we get caught up with that so much living in a place like South Carolina, and you talk about recruiting. I'm not saying it's not important, but I think sometimes when we lose, in terms of the importance. I can't figure out my word that I want to do. I'm not Webster over here, but one of the things that we lose sight of, look at that tough word. One of the things we lose sight of is it's not always just having, the best talent. It's being able to get guys that can gel and be able to play together. And we're seeing that right now. So obviously they have talented players here, but they play such complementary baseball to one another. And it's just a lot of fun to be able to watch, because they're doing it, as we've talked about ad nauseum. They're doing it in so many different ways. They're not just going out there, because how many times have you seen a team, I don't care what sport, they go out there and all they do is score, score, score. And now they get into a situation where it could be a low-scoring game and they just don't know what to do and they just piss down their legs. I mean, we've seen it all the time in sports. They've been in situations like that earlier in the year. They got it done yesterday with their pitching. So I'm just very excited to be able to watch a team right now playing as well as they've had, because it's something that Gamecock fans I know have been waiting for such a long time. And just as someone that enjoys baseball, it's a lot of fun to be able to cover.
In the SEC, outside of Arkansas, every single team in this league has lost a midweek game somewhere or had an upset on the weekend. It's baseball, what happens. But to this point, Carolina, they are unblemished. We'll see what the week brings. Citadel, Texas, 4 games this week, all of them on the road. Carolina trying to improve on that 12th ranking by D1Baseball.com. All right, we got a minute left and we got to run, brother, but we know that your new podcast is coming up. Tell us about that and when it starts.
Yeah, Beyond the Zone. I'm going to be hosting that. It's a Watch Fox podcast that should be, I'm going to hopefully announce it, be able next week. It should have the first episode next week is when it should come out for the first one. And we got an awesome guest, multiple people on this first one. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to be able to get a notification every time when one of our episodes drop, and you can listen to wherever you get your podcast, text Uva, UVA, to 44332. I think I have that right number. If I screw that up, which I would not be, I don't know. I'm not good with numbers. So I belong to you guys. But the bottom line is you text that number. It's on my Twitter. I'll put it up there again. You put that number out. You text that number, UVA, to that number, you will get a notification every time this podcast comes out. It'll come out once a week, most likely on Mondays, but we're very excited about this, and we'll get you guys engaged, and a lot of familiar faces that both Gamecock and Clemson fans are going to enjoy.
Let us know how we can help, as always, my friend. Thank you so much for your time, Mike. Great stuff. Love talking to you. Looking forward to that, and we'll talk soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Always. There you go. Mike Uva with Watch Fox in Columbia. All right, past due for a timeout. We're going to hit it now. When we return, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central joins us right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back to JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. That's available for free. Download it into your phone. You can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety. If you are watching the program on the top left, that's me. On the top right, it's Darren. Well, if you can't read, then I need to tell you where we are. But if you can read, you should know by now. If you're listening and none of this matters, 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It's also our text line. Thanks to Mike Uva in that last segment, and sorry, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central for being a few minutes late getting to you here at the top of this final hour on a Monday afternoon. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's up? So y'all don't like each other anymore? You can't be in the same room with each other, or what's going on here?
The smell, it was just getting too much. After a while, you just got to separate.
Yeah, the whole cooties thing, I could never let go of that. So no, we're taking a week off.
Shut up, though, man. It looks good.
We got options, right? We got these things that we're trying to figure out if they're going to work or not. So we figure, why not test them live? Because there's no other better way to do it.
That's right. Yeah. In the fall, with all intents and purposes, hopefully it all works out. Darren will probably be on the road calling football games, and on Fridays we might have to do it like this anyways, but he'll be in a hotel. So we'll have to figure that out when we get there. So we thought, you know what, we'll just do it now, and let's see how it all works out, and let's see how bad we are at this thing without each other right next to us to save our rear ends. But so far, so good. So.
Well, y'all can get a hotel sponsor and then just make some extra money off of it there as well.
I've had that when I worked for ESPN Radio in Charleston. When we did the Carolina Game Day pregame show in Columbia, we had a hotel who was one of our partners, and it was all fine and dandy until the last game of the year in 2015, which was Clemson, and they didn't reserve my hotel room for me.
So I didn't the car.
Oh no, I mean I have so many friends in Columbia. It wasn't that big of a deal, but I wasn't happy about it. Let's put it that way.
It sounds like that sponsorship ended.
It ended. It ended that day. Actually, yeah. That was not something that I was too thrilled about. All right, Wes. We'll get to some hoops here in just a little bit. I do want to start with some football because end of next week, spring practice is back in South Carolina. What are you tracking as we're now less than 2 weeks away from seeing the first official practice under Shane Beamer?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of snuck up on us, I think. And, we've been sort of, I would say, slowly tracking the progress of this team as much as you can in the off season when, they're going through these workouts and there's really no football involved unless it's just stuff that the players are doing on the side, on their own. But, I think this is the time we'll start to write about some storylines, write about, some things we're hearing. And really there's no shortage of storylines. You have obviously a new offense, a new defense, a new special teams, a new head coach, a new strength staff. I mean, if you had one of those going into an off season, that would be a topic of discussion. Hey, what's the offensive scheme going to look like? What's the defensive scheme going to look like? What's this new coach going to bring to the table? You have it at every single position almost as far as the assistants go and every single spot as far as the coordinators go. So there will be no shortage of things to talk about. I'm hopeful, maybe we'll actually get out there and see a couple of practices. It feels like things are starting to open up a little bit more as far as sports go. And I do believe in general that Shane Beamer, once we get past the COVID factor here, just all other things being equal, I think Shane Beamer is going to be a little bit more open to maybe having, some media out there at times, maybe even hopefully at some point having some fans out there to watch. So I think it was a very closed down nature previously. And, that's sort of the Nick Saban way of doing things. I think it's going to be a little bit more fan friendly as far as being able to follow the team and be a little bit more, close to the program once we get past all this other stuff that's out of all of our hands.
One of the neat things that you and Chris Clark are doing is GC Live. I think right now it's 3 days a week, and you can go to GamecockCentral.com, of course, and watch that, or go subscribe on their YouTube page, follow them on Twitter. You can watch it live there. It's a neat show for all things Gamecock related, especially stuff that y'all are talking about through the website. And lately you've had guests, Wes. I know you had Devontae Holloman, and you've had some recruits, and you've had some other former players. I think Pat was on there with you, and maybe a couple other guys. But have you been engaging in conversations with some of the alumni like Devontae and Pat and some of these other folks? Obviously, we've heard from some of them publicly over the last couple of months, but now as we approach spring practice, as maybe some word has kind of gotten to trickle out about what's actually going on in the football facility on a daily basis, what are those guys saying about the things they're hearing of their former program?
Yeah, I think there's an excitement level from, I would say, 100% of the guys I've talked to. I think it's kind of South Carolina and Beamer and the fan base, and then, of course, the former players are trying to draw every ounce maybe of connection to the golden years of South Carolina, to the best years of South Carolina football, going all the way to the fact that they're doing this thing for ticket holders where they're able to get pricing that is effectively the same as it was back when Shane Beamer was the coach here. So you've seen South Carolina sort of draw on that. A lot of the former players have been guys, not all of them, but a lot of them have been guys that played at South Carolina under Steve Spurrier, partially during the time that that Shane Beamer was here at South Carolina. So I think you're seeing there's a connection to that era for South Carolina that's at the helm now, and you're seeing the guys be sort of comfortable and feel like they want to be back, feel like they're going to be accepted when they come back. And, I think that's important. And, and I don't know necessarily that it wasn't the case, that Muschamp took strides towards doing that. He had the sort of 7-on-7 game that was before the spring game that invited a bunch of guys back. There were steps taken to try and make the guys feel more comfortable coming back to be around the program. But I think what we're seeing is it maybe, go to another level under Shane Beamer. And he's such a positive guy. He's such an energetic guy. He's trying to sort of tap into that feeling of the culture of the program and the excitement around the program back when they were winning and sort of feed off of that, I think.
What will we see, Wes? I don't know that you necessarily have this answer, but as you followed along here through workouts and with what some of the guys in the program are saying and with what we're hearing coming from the staff and what they're working on, what will we see at least to start spring practice? What are they trying to accomplish in that first week or so with this entirely new staff? You got a bunch of mid-year enrollees, you got a bunch of transfers in there. So what will that first week look like?
Yeah, I think you're starting from scratch in a lot of ways. And I think you're going to try to sort of build a foundation. You're going to try to build expectations for what is expected from every player in every practice. And I think first and foremost, the approach I'd imagine that will carry over from the strength and conditioning work has been more of a positive approach, more of a positive vibe, trying to sort of, there's multiple ways. We've seen it. Coaches coach many different ways. There's more than one ways, to win games. But I think for this coaching staff and for this group, it's going to be about creating a positive vibe, positive reinforcement, and sort of trying to build off that. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't get on guys when they need to hear it. That doesn't mean that you accept anything less than the best effort. But I think the first maybe couple of weeks are going to be sort of about trying to build the expectations for the culture within this program. And, I think we've seen that through strength and conditioning. Now, are you going to be teaching scheme on all sides? Of course, you're going to have to sort of start to lay the foundations of that as well. But you sort of get the impression you probably don't know, in this case, you being the coaches probably don't even know exactly what this scheme is going to be until they actually get out there, see their players on the field, see what they can do, see what they do well, see what they don't do well, and sort of go from there. So I think there's going to be a lot of learning from the players, probably a lot of learning from the coaches, because, guys, I feel like there's probably a little bit of a new chapter. If you're a player on this team right now, yeah, I'm sure the coaches watch film. I'm sure they know what the guys have accomplished or haven't accomplished so far. But for the most part, you want to give these kids a clean slate. So part of that is sort of starting from scratch, seeing what they do, see what they do well, see what they need to improve on, and then building from there. So, of course, scheme is always going to be important. But I would imagine the first week or so is going to be sort of a little more big picture than just the nuanced details within the schemes on offense, defense, and special teams.
On Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC, Wes Mitchell, of course, with Gamecock Central. It looks like, and Darren just sent me a note here.
Yeah,
This looks like some breaking news
coming about Tanner Bailey, who obviously the Gamecocks are looking for. Wes, you can talk more about Bailey, but he just put on his Instagram page that he is committing to the Ducks of Oregon.
Yeah, that was something we had been tracking over the weekend, and could South Carolina maybe get him to hold off? Could they not? Obviously, the answer was that they could not. He visited Oregon this past weekend. Obviously, you cannot take a sanctioned visit by a school, but what we've learned is that, hey, if somebody wants to go on their own, go to a campus, walk on, see for themselves, then there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. So what we've seen is a lot of prospects have been sort of taking it upon themselves to go take visits. So that's what happened. Tanner Bailey visited Oregon last week. It really appeared that Oregon sort of stepped into the driver's seat there with that visit. It was kind of a situation of if South Carolina could get him to wait, maybe continue to expand the process out, then maybe they would have a chance to sort of counter back. But in this case, Oregon grabbed the momentum and then landed a commitment, I guess, from him here today. So obviously not great news for the Gamecocks. He was a priority target for them at quarterback. And I know your next question is going to be, where do they turn now? Earlier today, Drew Allar, who would have, actually has an offer from them as well and was a big-time target for them too. He committed to Penn State. So I'll go ahead and tell you, I don't exactly know where they turn next, because I think now they're going to have to circle back, sort of expand the process out a little bit and find out the next direction at quarterback.
Do they turn anywhere else, Wes? Because you can't take visits right now. Could any of this change as that changes in the future?
Well, it's a good question. I think you're always going to, if a guy still wants to talk, you're going to keep having the conversations, right? If he was one of your top guys. And I don't know if you can rely on that, though. I think if you're South Carolina, you want to take a quarterback in every class. There's still, I'm sure, plenty of good quarterbacks out there, probably some that we don't even know about yet just because of the nature of the recruiting process right now. There's probably more guys under the radar than there ever have been before. So if you're South Carolina, it's sort of about refocusing, regrouping, and seeing who you can find. They need to be a good player. At this point, they don't even necessarily, if this makes sense, they don't even necessarily have to be a highly rated or highly recruited player yet. You just need for them to be a good player, in that you maybe go out and find a guy who's maybe not quite on the recruiting radar yet.
Obviously, we don't have the answer to this, because this young man apparently just committed moments ago. Darren literally got the information to us as it happened, but you have to once again bring this conversation back into play of not being able to get kids on campus, and you have to ask, how much of an effect did it have on this young man? I mean, obviously he can go tour on his own. Oregon has great facilities. Oregon has a wonderful program. It might be a better situation for him, certainly as a quarterback. And South Carolina just 6-16 over the last 2 years. That's obviously a black eye on the program, but being able to get kids on an official visit is so crucial to a team that's trying to rebuild like the Gamecocks are. And you have to wonder what type of impact that is having on this situation, and maybe even others that we're not able to even know about at this point in time.
Yeah, it's huge, man. And I think it's bigger for a program like South Carolina or any other program. I don't want to say it that South Carolina is the only one that's feeling the effects of this. That's obviously not the case. But any program that is not sort of in that maybe 5 just name brand perennial college football playoff power type programs, and especially any school that's trying to sort of rebuild what they are, that has a new coaching staff, that has a new, even if you had a new coordinator in town, maybe you're wanting all the offensive guys to come in and meet your new coordinator. But if you're a team like South Carolina right now, as we talked about earlier, new head coach, new coaches across the board for the most part. I mean, y'all know how it is. Apply it to everything else in life. Talking to someone on Zoom is just not the same as spending some actual time in a room with them. Yep. Having a tour where you're looking at a video, even if somebody's holding up, you're seeing it live. Somebody's taking you around, showing you the weight room. showing you the stadium, showing you the dorms, which is this is literally what they have to do right now is they're taking them around, showing them the various aspects of the program. It's just not the same as walking through the building, seeing all the bells and whistles, seeing how nice and new it is in person. So it hurts South Carolina. It hurts a lot of programs, but I think it especially hurts South Carolina because I can't tell you how many kids I've had from out of state in the past visit South Carolina and this was even before they had the ops building, but go to the practice fields and go to that beautiful indoor facility and be like, man, I didn't know South Carolina had all this. How did I miss all this? And that's really been the case since South Carolina really in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years started putting a greater emphasis on getting the right facilities needed in place. Sometimes, guys, you have this perception from out-of-state kids of what South Carolina is, and then they see it in person, and they're blown away because it matches and then exceeds their expectations. So I think as this thing gets, what is it now? May 31st, I think, is the deadline for the recruiting dead period. If you're South Carolina's coaches, you are hoping that this is it, that this summer you can get guys on campus, that they can come in, maybe even you can do some camps. And again, it goes back to, I believe, the vaccine being readily available, even by the guidelines. People are tired of hearing about this stuff, but the CDC puts out today, if you've had if you've been vaccinated, you can go be in a crowd, in a group without a mask, et cetera, et cetera. Those things, I believe, should hopefully lead to South Carolina and other schools being able to have kids on campus and not feeling worried about it because that's what the guidelines are now headed towards, I guess.
Well, Dabo Swinney said this morning that they're very optimistic at Clemson that they'll be hosting camps in June this year. And if Clemson's optimistic about it, there's no reason that South Carolina won't be. To your point, the numbers, I think it was by March 31st, over 4 million South Carolinians are going to have had access to vaccinations by March 31st. That's this month. That's over 80% of our population in the state. So hopefully, we could be on maybe the fast track of getting back to some type of normalcy. But when you see these things, you have to have the conversations because again, this young man. Hey, look, I always heard that New York was beautiful around Christmas time, and I always wanted to go. And then I went one time, and I can't wait to go back. All right, but had I not gone, I would have just heard it was beautiful, and I would have acknowledged it and moved on to the next thing in my life. So you're right. Seeing and believing are two things here that kind of coincide when it comes to recruiting, especially a program that's trying to rebuild with all the glitz and the glamour they've got now at South Carolina. Let me circle back real quick to spring practice. You mentioned something that I wanted to follow up on before that news broke about trying to feel things out in this first week coming up next week when spring practice kicks off. Will Muschamp always said, and I think Darren, he mentioned this with us last year before the season started. We kind of somehow we're talking about spring practice with him. Wes, I know you've heard it 1,000 times, but Will Muschamp always said that spring practice in his program specifically, at least, was about the young guys, getting the young guys out there, getting them some work, trying to figure out who these guys are, what they can and can't do, and things of that nature. Not that the rest of the team wasn't important, but it was about the young guys. Doesn't it kind of feel like everybody is now a young guy at South Carolina because everything's new. Everybody's new to each other. I mean, I don't know that would be the case now moving forward. This is everybody's case to make one early on.
Yeah, it's a clean slate. And, I think I tell you a guy that pops in my head from last year that maybe I think on the offensive side of the ball, we were probably having the same conversation at the time with a new offensive coordinator in town where it's sort of a clean slate for all the quarterbacks, all the skill guys last year. For now, that expands out to sort of everybody. You got a new chance to impress your assistant coach. You got a new chance to impress your coordinator. Deshaun Fenwick, for example, last year, obviously he's now transferred out and is at Oregon State. But none of us this time of the year were really talking about, hey, Deshaun Fenwick's going to be a huge part of South Carolina's offense. I bring him up because he took advantage of the opportunity of having that clean slate and even talked about that he felt like when new coaches came in, new running backs coach, new coordinator, he was like, I have a real chance to sort of start over and start fresh. So I think you're going to see that at a lot of positions. Receiver is a spot I feel like we've been talking about ad nauseum for over a year now and needing guys to step up there. But you have a great new young coach at that position. It's not like they don't have numbers at that spot. They have a ton of wide receivers on this team. It's just about maybe picking out which guys are ready to take a step forward, which guys on that list say, hey, I've got a new coach here, a new chance to impress somebody. Maybe it clicks with a new offense, with a new guy telling you what to do, with a new guy sort of giving you a new approach to the game on the field. So that there's a ton of guys on this team that if South Carolina is going to succeed and take a step forward this year, are going to have to individually take a step forward this year. But the exciting thing for a lot of them is that they should be sitting there waking up every day saying, I now have that chance. I'm not already in the doghouse. There's not like, that first impression that you have with a coach. Sometimes it's hard to break that if you have the same coach. So you get really a chance to make a new first impression with the new staff. And that to me is very valuable, especially if you're maybe a sophomore or junior that's been on the roster, but you haven't really played a whole lot. You should be really excited about that, I think.
I haven't seen one at least, an official schedule for the spring. Have you seen one yet?
I have not. I
Okay.
don't believe that has been put out in any way other than just to say, this is when we're planning to start. And then this is when they're planning to finish in, as far as the spring game.
Okay. I just want to make sure that Fink didn't pull me off the list for some reason. I'm going back in my head going, what did I say that could have pissed off Steve Fink? Please, God, tell me I didn't. All right. I know that you haven't necessarily been courtside covering the basketball program, Wes, but we'll ask you a couple questions with this, and then we'll let you run here at 1:30 on this Monday afternoon. Obviously, South Carolina's got, at this point in time, just one game left in the season unless they can win it, and they are the 11 seed going into the SEC tournament coming up later on this week in Nashville. They'll take on 6-seeded Ole Miss. I don't know what time, maybe 9:30, depending on
it's
how
very
long.
late. I know that.
Yeah, 9:30, 10. It's 25 minutes after game 3 or game 4.
Yeah, they're game 5
Thursday. Yeah, they're game 5. They're the fourth game of the day, but the fifth game of the tournament, if that makes things easier. But, obviously your staff has been all over this, the future of Frank Martin, the future of just the program in general. What do you foresee the rest of this week looking like? I'm going to play hypothetical here, even though I don't like doing that, but let's say they don't get past 6-seeded Ole Miss on Thursday, and it's, that's a fairly easy prediction to make, I think, based on how they've been playing the last few weeks of the season. If they don't, what do you think the immediate future looks like as they sit down, Coach Tanner, Ray Tanner, and Frank Martin, and try to figure out the future of Carolina basketball, figure out the future of Frank Martin? As we go back over the years and we look at the ends of these seasons, we know that Ray Tanner meets with all these coaches. So what do you see the next week or two playing out like for Carolina's hoops program?
Yeah, I think logistically, as you said, Frank Martin and Ray Tanner will sit down and go over everything. Normally that's like a day or 2 or 3 after the season has ended. So they'll sit down, they'll go over, hey, this is what went right. This is what went wrong. This is what surprised us. This is what needs to be fixed, and then sort of go from there. And I think, you sort of have there's 2 sides to this thing. And I think you can make a very, very strong case on one side of it and say, hey, look, Frank Martin's still considered one of the best basketball coaches in the country. And you can say, look, the team maybe didn't finish the last couple of years the way they hoped, but Final Four, has really actually taken the program to its greatest heights ever. And that can happen again. The other side of this thing, and I think will actually be a real part of the conversation as well, will be, hey, sometimes when somebody is at a place and it starts to get to year 9, year 10, year 11, this is something, Steve Spurrier talked about. Sometimes when somebody is at a place for a long enough time, then it's sort of both sides kind of agree, hey, let's try something different. So I think you kind of have these three different scenarios here, right? And it's, okay, do the two sides agree? Because you kind of have, well, where does South Carolina stand as far as the future of the program? But then the other side is, where does Frank Martin stand as far as the future of the program? Because he's going to have other offers. Now, this whole New Mexico thing has been thrown out there. I don't foresee Frank Martin, from what I've heard, leaving South Carolina for New Mexico. I don't see that happening. If another program, we're going to have other job openings, right, that will pop up at the end of the year. If somebody else comes in to take, to try and take Frank Martin away from South Carolina, I don't think Frank Martin wants to leave South Carolina. But if there's any hesitancy on the South Carolina end, is there a possibility for some type of mutual thing there? I don't know if we could sit there and completely rule that out, because anytime you start to get towards, again, year 9, year 10, a decade at a place, these conversations start to come up, unless you're just winning championships every single year. So my hope, though, y'all, is that, honestly, is that whatever happens, that it's going to be a mutual agreement, that it doesn't get ugly. Frank Martin has done a lot for this university. He's done way more great for the school, for the basketball program, and for the kids he's coached. I don't think fans need to lose sight of that just because the wins the last few years haven't quite been what they expected or what the media expected. The good has been far more than the bad, in my opinion. So if this is the end, if this isn't the end, I just hope it is a mutual thing, and I hope that it is a positive thing for all sides, because really that's what needs to happen. You don't want to be the school that runs Frank Martin off, runs off the only guy who got your Final Four, and but you don't want it to continue if both sides are unhappy, with how things are. So I just sort of hope that both sides are able to sort of come to an agreement on what this thing should be moving forward, and that it doesn't get ugly.
Buyout $6.5 million, Wes.
That's a big number.
Big number. I mean, look, I mentioned to Darren earlier. Darren, I think you agree. I mean, you got fans who are going to talk out of both sides of their mouth here, and their fans have pull in a coaching change if there's apathy and they stop buying tickets and stop supporting the program and things like that. But they're not the ones who are going to have any influence on a change when it comes down to the nitty gritty either. It's Ray Tanner in the athletics department, or they either do or they don't. But as it pertains to message boards and Twitter and things like that, where everybody wants to have their voices heard, how many people were fire Will Muschamp and then, oh my God, we have to pay him $15 million. What are we doing here? And you can already see this coming up, right? Fire Frank Martin. Wait a second. Why do we owe him $6.5 million? And not understanding the market, not understanding how these things work. But at the end of the day, you'd be talking about two coaches in a pandemic year where they lost all this money, and you'd be paying them about, unless Frank Martin negotiated something less, you'd be paying about $20 million in buyouts, Wes. I don't know. Based on what I've heard within the football program, they're not broke, but they're not just throwing dollars all over the place. I don't know that another $6.5–7 million in buyouts right now is the right way to go, but we'll see where it ends up.
Well, and I think people have to also realize a lot of times the buyouts are, and I believe in the case of Frank Martin, well, I know for a fact he's got 2 years left on his contract. So the problem is that the way things are structured right now, I believe the buyout is pretty much 100% of the remaining
100%.
dollar on the contract. So here's what you have, right? On one side, you have at the end of every contract, when things inevitably, how many coaches get to just sell off into the sunset, win a championship, go out on top, and everybody's happy? That very rarely happens, because if you're at the top, you want to try to stay at the top, right? Well, so every program generally, either in some cases, a guy does so well that he leaves you and goes to another school, and then everybody's really pissed off. Or programs go up, they sort of find what they are, and then a lot of times when the decline starts, that's when people start to get antsy and say, hey, let's move on. So how many programs actually are able to have that picture perfect sell off into the sunset moment? Not a ton. But what you have here, you always have a push from one side to extend the contract for recruiting purposes to at least 4 years so that it's not used against you in recruiting. Because you don't want another program to be able to say, well, they don't support him. He might be gone in 2 years. But because of the way the modern day major athletics contract is now structured, it's either by a percentage of what's left on the contract, or in some cases, it's 100% of the contract. So the second you're constantly, as an athletic department, you're like, man, we got to look out for our guy, because the second, and the fans, the second you're not willing to throw the money at the guy to keep him, the fans are like, oh, we're not willing to spend money like the big boys. But then some of the same people on the other side of this contract, if things go bad, they're going to be like, well, why do we got to pay $6 million? Well, it's because you had to keep up and keep extending the contract. So
that's right.
You're kind of at a lose-lose on either end of this thing, because it's also hard if you say, all right, bring Frank Martin back another year. Well, now there's only a year on the contract, so you're going to get hit in recruiting because you only have a year on that contract. So I'm glad I'm not the one having to sort through this and make the decision, because there's a lot at play here. Ultimately, I tend to think Frank Martin wants to be back at South Carolina. Yep. And I tend to think you're going to be very, very hard-pressed to find a better basketball coach or a better person than Frank Martin. So we'll see what happens, though, as these sides sit down and sort of walk through things, because obviously I think even Frank Martin would sit here and tell you the product hasn't been quite what anybody hoped to finish the year, certainly this year or last year. So we'll see. To me, I know I've said a lot of words, but the reason is there's just a lot of different little angles at play here, if that makes sense.
Well, at the end of the day, it's what problems do we have? Are the problems fixable? And in what timely manner are these problems fixable? If these are 4 and 5 year problems, probably got to make a change here. If these are, we can get this thing turned around within a year or so, because people they're not going to give him 2 and 3 years to turn this around. You know that, Wes. If you come back, there's a turnaround next year. If there can't be because of these reasons, then we probably need to go in a different direction. I mean, I don't know how these conversations are going to go, but I feel like I'm using simple logic here. What problems do we have? How long is it going to take to fix them? If they're not fixable problems, or they're going to take too long to fix, then we probably need to make a change, right? Is that fair?
That's very fair. And, I'll say this, when South Carolina made the decision last offseason in football to stick with Will Muschamp and make wholesale changes, bring in a new offensive coordinator, make all those changes, I sort of said at the time, if you're going to do that, you almost have to prepare to give him 2 years, So I think it's kind of one of these things, no matter what you do, y'all, you have to do it with complete conviction,
right?
If that makes sense. So there can almost be no little like, we're not really sure. You almost have to say, we got to go another direction, or you got to say we are 100% behind Frank Martin. He's our guy. There's no doubt in our minds that he can get this thing turned around, and we're going to give him everything he needs to make that happen. And then you very carefully maybe adjust the buyout, but you actually probably extend him, whether people want to hear that or not,
right,
while adjusting the numbers. So that's just my personal opinion. But no matter what you do, you got to have some conviction in it. It can't just be a half, let's ride the fence here situation.
Well,
I agree.
I mean, you can't say I completely have faith in you. Let's give you everything you need to succeed and then not extend him. So that's where you're right. I mean, that's where this makes a lot of sense, whether fans want to believe it or not, but at least there's you can look at Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. You can play with the numbers. You can, pull back a little bit while extending if that's the direction that Ray Tanner and the Gamecocks believe is best for the program.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
It's a double down theory is what it is. You double down on your decision. This is what we're doing. This is why, and we're fully in the boat. But if you can't do that, like you said, Wes, then yeah, I think it's fair to everybody to move on, because if you can't double down and say, I'm with you, Frank, and here's your extension, not money, but here's your extension on the contract, you're not sending any you're keeping him around, but you're sending the wrong message. You're sending the message of we can't afford to fire him, or we can't find anybody better, even though we wish we had somebody better. Whatever. You're going to have a bunch of theories that just aren't. They might not be true. They might be true, but at the end of the day, they're not the right message. So you either double down and say screw it for whoever doesn't like your decision, like you said, or you just, we got to cut cold turkey. I don't want to do this, but we're going to cut cold turkey, and then we're going to move on. And the roster, Wes, like there is this there's a false narrative. This is not a roster that's not talented. This is a talented roster. We've all seen them play. We know that they're a talented roster. Now, why aren't they playing well? We've talked about as much as we can when it pertains to COVID and this, that, and the other. Everybody's got their own little reason, and that's fine. But deep down, Frank Martin knows why they're not playing well. And is it a coaching staff problem, or is it a roster problem? If it's a coaching staff problem, you got to cut bait, move on. If it's a roster problem and it's fixable, then you could have a quick turnaround. But we don't know that answer. That Frank Martin and Ray Tanner should have that answer, I would imagine, in the next 7 to 10 days.
Well, and I will say real quick here, we also all have to remember it's very easy to say start over. But we also have to remember, what does start over actually mean? The transfer portal is not just a football thing. Transferring is a huge part of basketball as well. So I can promise you, if there is a change, be it Frank Martin, is sort of let go, or Frank Martin just finds a landing spot and goes somewhere else, the roster is not going to look the same next year. You can start to count, well, that guy's talented and he's coming back. That guy's talented and he's coming back. Maybe not. We saw it in football. In basketball, it's even a greater percentage, and these guys are even tighter with the head coach because you have so few guys on scholarship compared to football. So be prepared. If you are going to make a change, you have to be ready. It's not going to be a 1 or 2 year fix, because most new coaches these days are going to have to start over, because your guys are right. There's going to be a lot of loyalty towards Frank Martin, I imagine. Yeah. So you have to keep that in mind with these decisions you make as well.
That's a great point. And in basketball, one transfer in basketball, one transfer out in basketball can change your. Yeah, it's a whole new world. I mean, one guy can change the whole thing. All right, man. I know we've kept you around a long time. Darren he'll get you a check in the mail here shortly.
Yeah, let me get on it.
We certainly appreciate that. But GC Live this week. When can we hear and watch you and Chris Clark?
Yeah, well, here's our problem with GC Live. We end up moving it around like crazy depending on our schedule. So I can promise you Wednesday afternoon and Friday afternoon. I can't tell you what time. We're going to effort a guest on Wednesday, probably a former Gamecock, probably in the football side of things. And then Colin, of course, he'll be on Friday to preview what should be a really fun series with Texas. I'm actually, I said this earlier, we're not really supposed to pull for the Gamecocks, but I'm hoping they take care of business on Wednesday against the Citadel, because I want to see them go into this thing completely unscathed, which should be a really fun matchup. at Texas, and will certainly be the best crowd they've maybe faced this year on the road. Should be a fun start to what has got to be probably the hardest, most difficult college baseball schedule I've ever seen in my life. So it should be really fun.
Yeah, the top 5 in the new D1 baseball poll are all on South Carolina's schedule, and they're all in the SEC: Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Florida. You can see it right there on your screen. Wes, we'll let you run, brother. Thank you so much for the extended time. Really good stuff. I know fans probably need to continue to stay engaged with Gamecock Central throughout the afternoon. I'm sure you or Chris or both of you will have plenty on this Tanner Bailey situation and what is next for South Carolina as it pertains to recruiting their 2022 quarterback. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. Thanks, brother.
All right, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one, okay?
There you go. Yes, sir. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. All right, it is time for a timeout. How about a DB's cheesesteak timeout? Maybe we'll grab one of those after the show, Darren, since you and I can't sit together. We got to spend time together somehow. We're going to hit a quick timeout when we return. Got a little bit of football stuff to end your program with today, so hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Peace and love at Stokes Meet Up.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. Whatever you got planned this week, cancel it. 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours at whatever price it takes. I repeat, 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours. To the first 72 car buyers interested in saving up to $6,000 on a new Volkswagen for 3 days only. Every new Volkswagen and pre-owned vehicle at our bottom line price. Direct to the public, regardless of profit. Qualified purchases with interest-free financing for 60 months, and all trade-ins will be accepted. Interested parties should arrive early for best selection. You will not find a lower price anywhere in the country. 72-hour Volkswagen clearance, savings up to $6,000, 3 days only at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes Meet Up.
$16.66 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag includes $4.99.50 administration fee subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Guys, spring is finally in the air. You know what that means? Basketball in its home stretch. March Madness promotion at Dog and Duck's 3 locations in Mount Pleasant, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clemens Ferry Road. From now until the end of the tournament, $5 Sweetwater pints. That's right. Every Sweetwater, just $5 at Dog and Duck, Park West, Bell Hall, and their Clemens Ferry location. Plus, baseball spring training, college baseball, spring football, it's all available at Dog and Duck's 3 locations in Mount Pleasant.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee, but guess what? I can always listen to the JB and Goldwater Show because they are always live, loud, and online.
All right, final few minutes on this gorgeous Monday afternoon from the Low Country of South Carolina. By the way, quick traffic update. If anybody watching or listening to our show is in the Low Country and is thinking about hopping on I-26 and heading west towards Columbia, you better cancel your plans or adjust them heavily because traffic is a nightmare. There was a major wreck, I think somewhere around the King Street St. George 187 marker, and it has been backed up all day out there, and I don't foresee it getting much better here in the near future. Darren, I don't know if you've seen the traffic cameras, but they are bad.
I haven't been checking, but of course, right? No rain. It's finally a gorgeous day, so why not have traffic? Let's keep something normal.
I saw formerly of ABC News 4, Victoria Hansen, said she was stuck on 26 and can't get off. So
yeah, now with NPR.
That's right. Yeah. Hello, Victoria. All right, a couple of football notes to pass along here. I don't know if any of you missed this or not, but Tennessee's staff is now complete, and it's complete without Kevin Steele, who was there for all of 51 days, but he will be paid right around $1 million for being there for 51 days. A fully guaranteed contract. Kevin Steele, of course, was a Tennessee football player, knows the program quite well, but they didn't want him to stick around, but he'll leave paid handsomely, and we'll see where he ends up. Probably as another interim coach at some point in time, but he's been the interim coach twice here in the last few months.
He just made a lot of money.
Yeah, and neither one of those gigs parlayed into a head coaching gig at either Auburn or Tennessee. But I don't know if anybody saw that or didn't see it, but it was a couple of days ago. Also, Gene Sapikoff tweeted a couple of days ago. I want to pass this along as well. The Stingrays, if you missed this, have announced that home game capacity increases. Attendance has increased to 50%. 50%. But per ECHL rules, fans still must wear a mask when not actively eating or drinking. And fans may opt for sections no more than 25% full. So that's pretty neat as well. If you're going to go watch some hockey down in North Charleston, the Citadel, 33 athletes face NCAA suspensions for improper bookstore purchases, very similar to the Charleston Southern deal from a few years ago. I mean, come on, Darren, whatever. So what? They bought some electronics instead of books. Who gives a crap?
It's just one of those fine print type things, I guess, with the NCAA. And yeah, it's eerily similar to the Charleston Southern thing. And the way the Citadel is going to work this, they will keep, I don't know if all of the athletes are football players or not. The majority at least are.
30 of them.
30 of the 33. So they won't have all of them suspended or unavailable for a specific game. They'll tier it. So a couple guys were not available this weekend. A couple guys won't be available next weekend. But yeah, it's strange that it's the same thing that happened to Charleston Southern. It almost feels like, and I don't know this at all. I'm just saying what it feels like. It's like one school's telling on another and the other one tells on them back and then, follow the paper trail. But look, the rules, right? I mean, you're given a certain stipend here. You can go use it at the bookstore. Here's what you can use it for. Don't be dumb. Don't risk your eligibility. Don't put your team and teammates in jeopardy. And they did. So the Citadel will navigate that, and we'll see if any, probably not, NCAA punishments come down.
You're right. At the end of the day, rules are rules. We might not agree with them, but rules are rules, and you got to follow them. But 37. There was 37 total. 33. There was 4 who they'd already figured that out, I guess, and then 33 in this latest bust.
Yeah.
But 30 in total from the football program. As you mentioned, they're going to stagger the suspensions so they don't all miss the same game. We're going to hold off on this Nick Saban, Kirby Smart implicated in this weird video by Rush Probst. Anybody who doesn't know who that is, he's the former head coach at Hoover High School. Hoover High School, of course, was the star of the MTV Two-A-Days series. I don't know if he was caught on video. I don't know if you want to call it that.
It sounds like he was, we'll get into it more tomorrow. It sounds like in some ways he was trying to validate certain things he's doing or others are doing. But it's not like he's got the cleanest resume in the world. So it's an interesting conversation.
It is. I mean, his comments were detailed, and that's what's caught people's ear is like, here's a guy who's had kids recruited by these schools. He still does know the inner workings of how the bagmen are in college football. I would think, be honest with you, his credibility's shot. But if there's anybody that understands the underbelly of this sport and the dark world that is paying players, he probably is the guy.
Well, yeah, because he lives, or at least has lived, in that world.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see if this thing has any legs, because we're going to know soon if it has any legs. And it's going after a lot of really important people, or at least 2 in particular. And it's going to be hard to make this thing stand and have some legs.
That's right.
We'll see in the next couple of days.
Yeah, probably the most important person in the sport, Nick Saban. Yes. All right, a quick national hoop note here. If anybody missed it, Michigan State split a series this weekend with second-ranked Michigan. Just a couple of weeks ago, Joe Lunardi said, have you seen the rest of their schedule? No shot. They won't dance. I think they are. How about that? They should be. Yeah, 3 wins. 3 top 5 wins in the last 2.5 weeks, Darren.
Yeah, it hasn't happened like that. I retweeted it. It's been ages since a single team beat 3 top 5s in a 13-day span. I'll have that number tomorrow for you.
Okay. It is also International Women's Day. We love all the women out there. Happy International Women's Day. And coinciding with Tanner Bailey's commitment to Oregon, it's National Oregon Day. Maybe that's why he chose to do it today.
Definitely. So maybe he'll just decommit tomorrow.
Maybe he'll commit to South Carolina on National South Carolina Day later on in the summer. How about that?
Yeah, it's got to figure out when that day is.
Thanks to Mike Uva and Wes Mitchell, and as always, thanks to Darren Goldwater. I know we look different today. We'll look different tomorrow and the rest of the week, but hopefully you'll stick around and join us. Have a marvelous Monday afternoon. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, will be back tomorrow at noon, and we'll see you then.